Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I just did quite a gnarly hike to get in here, so I apologize for the sweaty, disheveled look that I'm currently rocking, but I am ready to do my full review on the GiantMouse Ace Grand. So I figured this was a pretty cool spot to do it. I'm actually under this like bridge in kind of a reservoir right now. I've walked by this part of the canyon, but I haven't really explored around in here. Anyway, let's talk about the knife. So this is the GiantMouse Ace Grand. I've already done an unboxing of this. I've done the first impressions video of this, and I even did a comparison with the Spyderco Shaman. So if you want to watch a lot of videos on this, they already exist on my channel. But it is time for my full review. I have been carrying this knife like crazy. I've been using it quite a bit, and I've really been trying to get a good sense of it and really feel it out and just prepare myself to be able to speak on it from experience. So I'm going to mostly skip over my history with GiantMouse in this video. If you want to learn about that, I've talked about it in my other videos, but my experiences with the brand previously were not largely positive. I haven't wanted to keep any of the three GiantMouse knives that I've had in the past, but this one is a totally different story. I am thrilled with this knife, and not just by comparison to the ones that I didn't really like, but compared to knives that I really do like. It stands on its own as a very, very good offering, in my opinion. So before I jump into my sensation of the knife and how I feel it is, let's talk quickly about the ingredients that make this knife. So let me block my eyes so it will focus. The blade on this knife is Elmax. Bowler Elmax is a very good steel in my opinion. I really, really like Elmax. It has awesome edge retention, decent levels of toughness. It's a great steel, especially for this knife, I think. The blade itself, I think we're right around the 3.5 inch mark. Again, I'm not really a measurements kind of channel, but this is what I would consider a full-size EDC knife. It's not oversized, it's certainly pocketable, but this isn't a small knife or something that I'd carry as a secondary either. The handle scales are are micarta, and this OD, I think this is canvas micarta, is really, really well done. The level of grip mixed with the inherent kind of smoothness of well done micarta like this just makes it one of my favorite handle scale materials. For folding knives, micarta is really, really hard to beat, in my opinion. This micarta isn't like fuzzy at all, but it's not polished. It's a good happy medium of giving a good natural micarta texture and grip without being overly like fluffy, as sometimes micarta can be. So on the clip side, as you can see, we have a wire pocket clip, and I am a big fan of wire pocket clips. I genuinely almost always love wire clips, and I just dig the way that they function. I dig the way that they look. I like how inconspicuous they are when they're in your pocket. And this one is specifically one of the best wire clips I've ever used. It's really, really well done. The amount of tension it provides is perfect. It's got this nice kind of matte tone on it, so it's not getting scratched up easily. It's perfectly matched to the end of the knife. It doesn't leave any knife sticking out of your pocket, which is exactly what you want on a deep carry clip. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I don't understand when companies put deep carry clips on knives and then they mount them low down on the scale so there's still knife sticking out of your pocket. It doesn't make sense to me. The purpose of a deep carry clip is to get it to carry deep. Anyway, so this clip is really, really exceptional. It feels good in the hand. This clip is by no means a hot spot or even like a warm spot. It feels so like it's part of the knife in a way that's unobtrusive, and I wouldn't change a thing about this pocket clip. Beyond that, so we've got Elmax, we have micarta, we have a bent wire pocket clip, we have a titanium backspacer. This backspacer is done really well. As you can see, it has an integrated lanyard hole there, which is something I'll never use, but it's out of the way, so I don't mind it. They do put this little bit of jimping right where the hole is on the backspacer. I'm not totally sure what the purpose of that is. I don't feel it in my hand in a reverse grip. That's not where any part of my thumb or anything lands, so I don't really know why that's there, but it doesn't bother me one bit because it's completely out of the way. Other than that, all we have left are some nested liners. So we've got stainless steel liners. I think they're stainless steel. I don't believe they're titanium. I'm like 98% certain. So both sides of the micarta have been hollowed out to receive a nested liner, which is, in my opinion, the best way to put liners inside of a knife, because then you don't have, it's not like a stacked construction. It just looks neater to me. It feels nicer and more finished, and it's better for weight too, because you've got less steel in there because it's not going all the way to the edge. It's set in just a little bit. I really, really like that. On the show side liner, internally, I'm not going to be able to show you, so I'm not even going to try, but it does have laser etching of the GiantMouse symbol. It says Vox Anso, made in Italy, Elmax. I love that they put all of that inside the knife, kind of hidden away, so that it's there for people who need to know what blade steel this is and who makes it. Great, but the only other marking on the knife is on the clip side of the blade, where it says Ace, and it has the GiantMouse logo, which is great. The show side of the knife, completely sterile. Front to back, stem to stern, it's unmarked. And I love that. I feel like this knife, I've been posting a lot of pictures of this knife on Instagram already. Not just because it's new and exciting to me, but it's a genuinely really attractive looking knife in my opinion. It's an excellent amount of restraint in design, where I feel like they didn't over-design this knife at all. And lately I've been really appreciating some of those more restrained designs. I don't tend to gravitate towards the really out there, futuristic looking, ooh, that is a bee, get away from me, dude, get away. These bees are gonna get me one of these days. Anyway, I really appreciate that they designed this knife. It's not boring looking at all. It looks very handsome to me, but they stopped where it was sensible and they didn't keep going. There's nothing that's too much about this design. It's a great, relatively simple blade shape, but we do have just the littlest uptick here before we get to a really well done swedge. The spine is rounded. We're going to get to that. It's one of my favorite things on knives, period. I love when companies take the time to do that. But we've got a very functional but very attractive looking blade. The handle scales and the handle profile is fairly neutral while still having some shape to it to keep you really locked into the knife, and it's a functional amount of design. They haven't added any flair that's unnecessary, and I just really appreciate that. Let's talk a little bit about ergos. For me and my hands, I would call these ergos very, very good. They're not great. Like, I don't put this knife in hand and like marvel at how amazing it is, but there's certainly, there's nothing I can really complain about on these handle scales. I mentioned in my comparison with the Shaman, the only thing that I may change is, so if I really bunch my fingers up, I can kind of get all four in this curve here, but my pinky wants to land kind of right on this hump. So for my hands, I just kind of have to adjust a little bit. So I either cheat my pinky back a little bit, and then it's super comfortable, or I kind of squeeze in, and that's real comfortable, but I do feel like I couldn't hold it that way for hours on end and be comfortable. So even when my pinky lands right on that hump, it's really rounded and it's not like a point. So it's not even uncomfortable with my pinky right there. But for the size of my hand, I do land in kind of an inconvenient way, where I feel like people with bigger hands, their pinky will land more comfortably just past that onto this flat. And for people with smaller hands, it'll land right into this curve here. But I want to reiterate, it doesn't ruin the knife for me in any way. Like, it's such a nitpicky small thing to be like, it's a little uncomfortable right there. It's not a hot spot. It's not really bothersome. It's just one thing that, to make it perfect for me, I would just alleviate a little bit of that hump. Not even all of it, because I like what that hump does for locking me into the knife and keeping me so that I can't slip forward or back. So up front we have a little bit of a guard inherently with the way that that is shaped. Come on, focus. So there's a little bit of a guard right here, and then with this swell back here, it really just, it keeps me locked in both directions, and I like that a lot. Other than that, on ergos, the way that the knife rests into my palm is bordering on perfect. This shape back here is just phenomenal. For the way that it sits in the palm of my hand, I feel really locked into this knife. Pardon me. And my indexing on this handle also, with even without using my thumb, keeping my thumb off of it in a hammer grip, I can tell right where the edge is at all times, and it doesn't feel like it wants to torque in either direction. The size, like the width this way, and the shaping of it is just really well done for feeling ultra functional, and I like that in a knife of this caliber and these ingredients. This should be a user knife for places like this. I should be able to take it outdoors and like really use this knife. That's kind of the way they're marketing it. That's what these materials should be good for. So the fact that the handle comes together and makes that work so well, oh, I love it. I also find myself usually with knives in a saber grip, I try to kind of choke my thumb back a little bit if they have jimping, so that I can match my thumb to where the jimping is, because that's where it feels like the design of the knife wants my thumb to be. But here, with the jimping pushed a little farther forward in traditional GiantMouse style, it is so excellent, because it's right where my thumb really should be, not where the design of a knife is telling my thumb to go, because they've put jimping there for some reason which I don't usually understand. But here, goodness, it's right where my thumb wants to land to give me the most control over this blade when I'm making push cuts and trying to be a little bit precise with the type of cutting that I'm doing. It's really, really great. And the jimping itself is nice and tight. It's not overly sharp, but it's not nothing either. It does lock my thumb in, especially because this spine is rounded and it's so smooth, which is my favorite thing about it. But if it was real smooth right there, I wouldn't be as locked into this for the type of hard use that it's designed to be able to accomplish. So it's just really a well done design. One of the things that's kind of bothered me about my misses with GiantMouse in the past, and how they've kind of fallen short on the ones that I've gotten, is that I've always really respected their designs, and I've liked, on most of them, the way they fit in my hand. I've liked where they place that jimping. I've liked how thought out it feels as a knife. So when I got them and they had issues that precluded me from wanting to keep them, it was a real bummer, because I have wanted all along to like them so much, because I dig the design. Aesthetically, functionally, it should be so good for me. And this one finally really is so good for me. I adore this knife. It has this certain character about it that's really fun. It doesn't feel like just another production knife to me. And I don't know, it feels more special than a lot of other knives that are coming out lately do. Obviously that's very subjective, but this knife just excites me, and that's a really cool thing to have happen, especially when this was kind of me giving them a final chance. So it's awesome that it's kind of revived my faith in GiantMouse as a brand. So ergos are phenomenal. That rounding on the spine just makes me phenomenally happy. The placement of the jimping, it works together so well to make this knife feel great in hand. It's not like the most comfortable, most neutral knife ever. It's kind of, to me, this may be a bad example, because for some people the PM2 doesn't fit in hand great, but for me, the way I feel locked into a PM2s are not the most comfortable knives that I've owned. Far from it. They're not uncomfortable, but the way I feel locked into them feels supremely functional and not uncomfortable. And that's kind of what I get from this. It doesn't feel painful or uncomfortable in any way. I could use this knife for a long period of time and I wouldn't feel this fatigue in my hand like I would with ergos that are bad. But it's not overly smooth. It's not overly neutral. It's shaped in a way that really, I don't know, it feels well designed for actual use. And to me, there's a difference there. I don't know if you guys have experienced that, but some knives are really, really comfortable, but you're not actually that locked into them, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And it depends on what you plan to do with that knife as to whether that's a problem or not. But for me, the second I saw this knife, I knew if it was going to work for me, it was going to be an outdoor folder that I could use for some pretty robust activities. Let's think. So I guess let's talk about carry real quick, and then we'll talk about the cutting performance on it. Carry with this pocket clip is really, really good. This knife is not small. I would, again, consider it full size, but not oversized. It's fairly wide in this direction. It's not thin. It's rounded in a nice way, so it has an inherent kind of smoothness about it, both in the actual texture, but also in that there's no real harsh corners on it anywhere. Everything about it is fairly round, and it's not super light. It's not overly heavy either. It just feels really well balanced for the class that it's in. I don't expect a knife with these capabilities and these materials to be like a disappear in the pocket type of knife. It just doesn't. Those two things can't really coexist, in my opinion. To have something ultralight and slim and like disappearing in pocket-esque, if that's even a way to describe that, you have to sacrifice some function and some sturdiness, and this doesn't sacrifice those things, so it's not going to disappear in the pocket. But for its size and weight and on and on and on, it's very comfortable in pocket, and it owes a lot of it to the material choices. The micarta is an excellent material to have in pocket, in my opinion, and then also to the pocket clip. The pocket clip is just, it's one of my favorite pocket clips. Like, if you hate wire clips, you're not going to like it. That's the way it goes. But I happen to really enjoy the functional reality of how how wire clips work for me, because they snag on stuff less. If I happen to like accidentally bump up against like a leather steering wheel as I'm standing up or something, these just glance right off of it. If I'm hiking on a trail and I go up against some twigs and through brush and stuff, guess what's going to snag less than any other type of pocket clip? This kind, because they're rounded and they're smooth, and it's just it's a design that works really well. Plus, I kind of dig the way that they look. I don't think they're the most attractive clip. Like if you're designing a all titanium, really nice, aesthetically very pleasing frame lock folder, and you want the aesthetics to be the commanding feature of it, I wouldn't say use a wire clip. I'd say do a milled titanium clip that reflects the design of the rest of the knife through onto the clip. But functionally, milled titanium clips are oftentimes kind of my least favorite clips. So I don't know. I love the functionality of this, and I feel like it actually looks really good with the design of the knife too. I don't think anything about this clip looks offensive. I quite like the way it ties together, and it fits the functional design that's happening here. I really dig it. So I guess the last thing I should talk about is the cutting performance. And I've done a lot of cutting with this knife already. I've carried it as a primary at least 6 or 7 times now, and each time for at least half of a day, and I won't stop carrying a knife with my current rotation, the way that I'm trying to get all these knives that I'm trying to review in my pocket and use them. I won't take a knife out of my pocket and switch it for another one unless I've done something with it. So if I have this in pocket for 7 hours but I haven't cut anything with it yet, I'm not going to switch to a new knife. So I've done quite a few cutting tasks with this, and I found myself not wanting to switch it for other knives a lot of the time too. It's one that I genuinely enjoy carrying and pulling out and using. It's not crazy thin behind the edge, although for my intended purposes with it, this is about as thin behind the edge as I'd be comfortable it being. The edge that came from factory is good. It's not one of the best factory edges I've ever had on a knife. In fact, I'll probably touch it up fairly soon, although it's been very, very functional. This knife is very sharp. It's just that with how many knives go into my pocket and pass through my hands these days, I've become a little more discerning as to like how sharp a really sharp edge is from factory, and pretty consistently I get the sharpest edges on like Taichung Spyderco's. Cold Steel does really, really good factory edges, and so an edge like this is, I would compare it to like a lot of the Benchmade edges that I get. It's very good, but it's not like, wow, how did they get it this sharp from factory? So if I touch this up, or I'm actually hoping to get a new sharpening system soon, I may wait till I do that, but I'll get it sharper. That's not to say that it's not already very, very sharp. This will pass through paper, and it'll curve as it goes if you want it to, and it's excellent at going through cardboard. I've put it through rope and paracord. I've put it through all of my typical like household type of things, zip ties, and then I've also used it out here a little bit. Even carrying it up here today, there were spots where the trail was a little overgrown. I could have gotten by them, but I like to clear those spots, and when I'm got a knife in my pocket that I'm trying to test, it's the perfect opportunity. So I was putting it through like probably pointer finger thick growth on the trail and just hacking through stuff, and it's great. It's really, really good at it. So I appreciate the cutting performance of this for being kind of as balanced as it is. It's not focused on being an ultra thin, super slicey, like light to medium EDC knife. It's ground in a way that I'm comfortable taking it out here and doing that trail clearing stuff with it. But it's also functionally thin and sharp enough that I can do those kind of lighter duty EDC tasks, and it doesn't feel like it's way too much knife for those either. Like, this makes sense to have in my pocket if I'm making post office runs and opening up a bunch of packages, or if I'm coming out here, which is nice because sometimes the really kind of robust outdoorsy folders, they feel a little bit like they're too much for my pocket on a normal day when I'm not walking on dirt, if that makes sense. I don't know. Anyway, overall, I'm just really, really stoked about this knife. I genuinely appreciate it. I like it for so many reasons. I like the way it carries. I like the way it cuts. I like the way the ergos feel in my hands. I like the aesthetics of it a lot. I love the way this knife looks. I like the guys behind it, from what I can see, and there are other designs that I've owned, not necessarily from GiantMouse, but from other manufacturers. I like their design language, and I also enjoy their presence in the community from everything I've perceived. So it's cool to get a knife from a smaller company, and I wouldn't call them small at this point, but GiantMouse isn't Spyderco. It's not Benchmade. It's not CRKT. It's not Zero Tolerance or Kershaw. It's like they're a smaller thing, and it's kind of cool to me to see them making it with a lot of demand behind their products. And if they keep producing knives that are this well finished, that actually have good detents and actions and are fun to play with and are reliable and are super functional like this is, then I'll buy more GiantMouse knives. I want to say too that I know they've done one or two knives out of Riat instead of whoever they're using in Italy. This one's an Italian one, and I think I saw that they're doing another Riat manufactured knife. I'm not sure whether it's going to be one of their GM knives, like one of the actual limited run ones, or if it's going to be another Ace knife. I'll have to find out. But there's new exciting stuff coming from them either way. So I'm excited to see what the future holds for those guys. Because if they can do this well, then I've got a lot of faith in them moving forward, which is good because I didn't before this knife. So it's nice that it's done that for me. Anyway, this has been the GiantMouse Ace Grand, and it's an exceptional knife. It really is. I like it a lot, and I'm excited to keep it. I don't think this is one that I'm going to be letting go of anytime soon, although it's a little tempting because I've heard they're going for a lot on the secondary, but I like it quite a bit, and so it's one that I feel like is at home in my collection. It feels like it's a knife that belongs with me, and it's very up my alley in just about every way. So if you've got similar taste to me, you'll probably like this knife as well, assuming that they also get yours just right, because this one is just right. The detent, the fit and finish, everything about it is great. So there you have it, GiantMouse Ace Grand, and that is my full review.